Commercial protection is about having systems and processes in place or having safeguards or contingencies for what may come. Another Grenfell happens, everything's going to change. The impact that Grenfell's had on the industry, it was awful, absolutely awful. And what's most awful about it is it could have been prevented. When you're looking at protecting your business, you need to look at the people and the assets within them. They don't document that it's going to cost the company money, which means there are no bonuses, there are no benefits, and there is potentially no business and there is no job. A lot of people think someone will get to a level and then you just sit back and relax, put your feet up and let the business run itself. Never. It's madness, but you'd be surprised how many people have that plan.
Welcome to Taking the Con Out of Construction, the straight-talking show that's changing the industry, one episode at a time. Small mistakes can cost big money, and even more in time. But a small investment in listening to this episode could help you avoid disputes, delays, and costly pitfalls, while giving you the know-how to stop problems before they start. Let's turn complexity into clarity, and take the con out of construction.
Welcome back to Taking the Con Out of Construction. In this episode, we're talking about retaining commercial protection and why protecting margin, cash flow, and contractual position is just as important as delivering the build itself. Commercial risks are often underestimated until they start impacting profitability and sustainability. Michelle, retaining commercial protection is something many businesses think they've covered until they realise they haven't. Can you talk us through what this means in practice, who needs it most, and why it's so critical in today's construction landscape?
Yeah, so the topics that we've covered and the order we've covered them has been fairly strategic to give you a basis from the start to finish of level of importance, what to do. If you're new to the podcast, then I suggest you have a look at the other episodes that are available. If you've listened to some of them, there might be some others that are relevant. Although I try to link aspects of it, I also hope that some people are listening to more than one podcast and I don't want to bore them into repeating other bits and pieces. But commercial protection for me is making sure that a project and a company are protected from a legal perspective as well as a cost perspective, because one goes in hand with the other. I am biased slightly, but I do believe that QSs are the best people to write contracts rather than solicitors. I speak about this actively all the time because QSs understand the risks of construction, and the construction industry is so different from any other industries. Unless you've got actual construction experience, it's very, very difficult to understand the pure risks of a construction project, but also the people in it, the methods, the way that things are, and you need to have account for that. If you try and write contracts that go against all of that, then you're going to be at commercial risk, and that means it's going to cost you money. There are many times that I've sat in big fancy offices with 7 or 8 solicitors negotiating a contract for one of my clients. And there's a clause that doesn't benefit their client. And I explain to them why it doesn't benefit their client. Actually, they're exposing their client. For example, the biggest one that most solicitors put in are that variations are not approved unless approved in writing by 2 or 3 different people. No one on site is going to read that contract. The QS might not even read the contract. The site manager is definitely not going to read that contract. So nobody's going to know that the standard JCT terms, depending on which contract it is, will be something along the lines of, if there is no dispute raised within 7, 14, 28 days, and it's deemed to be instructed. Obviously, I'm not going to specifics and contracts now. But if someone is aware of that, theoretically, the contractor can sit there for 6 months and not do anything. But when I explain to a solicitor they're actually exposing their client because of the way that the industry works, they remove these clauses very, very quickly, because the last thing they want to do is expose their client to more risk, because that's what they're about, is reducing or removing all risk. But unless you really understand what the risks are and also the knock-on effect of changing the standard way of working, then that's going to be a problem. One of the things that people need to be aware of, and I've said this in contracts before, commercial protection is understanding where your legal stance is, the legal side of things, having a basic understanding of, okay, fine, simple things like just because you haven't signed a contract doesn't mean that you haven't agreed to it. Because if someone sent you a contract and you, by action, and that means stepping foot on site, means you agree to those contract terms. If you don't understand what those contract terms are, you need to find someone that is going to explain it to you. That is one aspect, but also making sure that your team are aware of the different terms. I've mentioned this before when I do a contract and review a contract for clients. I don't do a lot of them now, but I do for certain clients. I always do a contract synopsis. You need to make sure And I will make sure personally that the project manager, the QS, and the site manager are fully aware of what they need to do. And sometimes I'll do a separate response list for each one. This is what you do in this instance. This is what you do in that instance. In this instance, call me, for obvious reasons if it's severe. But you are responsible for that as your business. And every contract is different. So yeah, I've done it for one contract. Unless you're using exactly the same contract terms for another contract, then you need to do that process again. It's about being aware of having that process. It's the same as with people that are trained up and then they leave. You need to make sure that the person that's replacing them is also trained up to the same level. Okay, they might want to do things slightly different. They might bring something different, but you need to make sure you're getting at least a bare minimum of what you're expecting to, because that process was put in place for a reason, to protect you. So I can go into a business and I can protect them commercially with an inch of my life, but within a week or two, that might be outdated. Now, I would never waste money on getting every single contract so tight that no one can move from it, because it's not necessarily beneficial unless there's valid reason for it. And that's what the client specifically wants, because there's negotiation within anything to do with legal. There's interpretation, and there's a number of ways things can be interpreted. So it's never really 100% locked up tight, but lock up as tight as we can and within reason. There's also no point in writing a contract that no one's going to sign up to. So yeah, everyone likes to have back-to-back clients, but you're not going to have a client that's got a contract of 30,000 that's going to agree to £1 million LADs. It's never going to happen. And also, they're not going to want to sign up to 24 months defects or other bits and pieces, because the risk to their business is just far too great. And having that understanding, spreading that risk, what is the impact of that £30,000 project? Is it going to really cause us delay that we're going to have £1 million worth of LADs? No, it's not. So it's about adapting and learning how to adapt. And it's about having the right people. And there's lots of people, we can't afford a QS. Okay, we'll get a fractional one. Or because you only had a budget of £20,000, so you got a part-time QS. Well, actually, with that £20,000, potentially you could get a fractional commercial director that comes in 1 day a week and actually going to be more beneficial to you than getting your value for money. But it's also, where are your risks and what is specific to you and mitigating those risks. But risks change with the business as the company grows. Like if you're looking to grow, that's amazing. Have you got the people in place? Have you got the funding in place? Have you got the assets in place? I've worked with a number of companies and they've doubled their turnover. They've still got one accountant or one admin person, or they'll add another company to the side of it. Like they'll have another avenue because they've added a bolt on to their business or a bolt on service. Still just got one accountant. But it gets to the point that you're going to need a second. That person's going to be burnt out. But then also potentially the risk you've got then is, before that person's burnt out, they're working 12 hours a day and working weekends to keep up, because you're adding business, you're adding revenue, and you're adding profits. They're likely to make mistakes. And whose fault is that going to be? Is that going to be that accountant's fault? Is it going to be yours? So you can do commercial protection, you can get a consultant in, you can have a piece of advice, you can have a conversation, you can get one contract reviewed. But things are changing, the industry's changing, legislation is changing. It's about having systems and processes and the right people, but it's also about working. A lot of people think they come into a business, some people will take over a business, someone will get to a level and think, you get to this stage and then you just sit back and relax, put your feet up and let the business run itself. Never. Not unless you're really lucky to have the right people that are as passionate as you are. I've had a number of clients that come to me and they want to wind down, and they can't wind down because actually the business doesn't run without them. So then we have to come up with a strategy to set up systems and processes to allow the business to run without them and for them to step back. But in order for them to step back, someone has to step up. And I've got a business that I'm working with at the moment, a client that's working, that the guy wants to retire, and you've got one person out of the team that wants to take that spot, but there's no one ready to take his spot, but they don't want to recruit. So how is this person going to move up here to take over your spot while you go and relax and move to the Seychelles or whatever? How is that going to work if you've got no one to do this person's job? Because this person is not going to do both jobs. One, you're not paying them that amount of money. And two, it's impossible because you've done it and now they've done it. Okay, you might be winding down and stepping back and not doing as much as you were doing 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. You've been doing this job for 20 years. So for you, things are quicker, easier. You're asking someone to step into your position. They're doing a new job. They need to learn. They're not going to be fast. They're not going to be able to do what you do in half the time in a full-time job. They're going to have to learn to do that. So you're expecting them to take on your role that they've got to learn and still cover their own full-time role. It's madness, but you'd be surprised how many people have that plan. If you're a business owner, you're looking at an exit plan in 5 years or 10 years' time, ever needs to be put in place, you need to start putting that in place now. If you've got someone in your team that you want to take over because you've got that vision and you see that potential, that's amazing. You also need to find someone to take over from them. That could be a 19-year-old girl or boy. Then you need to be involved in the process of employing that person because you need to find someone that's got that spark. That spark that you know that you saw in the current manager that is sitting there in the middle management that you want to take over from you. You saw that when they were 19, 20, 21 or whatever, when they first started working for you. You need to find someone with a similar spark that can take over from them. And it's amazing how people don't look that far down. They will look at who's going to take over from them, but they're not going to look over who's going to take over from the person that's taken over from them. They don't look that far deep. And it's exactly the same with systems, processes, the way that things work. People leave. Businesses change all the time. Personalities change. People change. People go on maternity. They come back, they're not the same person. Their priorities are different. How do you cope with that? How do you protect your business from that? Things change with overheads, for example. Wages go up. Do your costs go up accordingly? Probably not. Legislation changes. How are you going to deal with that? How are you going to protect yourself from that? How are you going to make sure that you are covered? Are you going to make sure that you are compliant? How are you going to pay for that? Part of commercial protection is about strategy. A lot of people, especially in construction, are all about firefighting and dealing with problems when they arise, and they're reactive. They're not proactive. So commercial protection is about having systems and processes in place or having safeguards or contingencies for what may come. It's great having yourself protected now in today's market, but war breaks out tomorrow, things will change. Next week, a new piece of legislation comes in, things will change. Another Grenfell happens, everything's going to change. The impact that Grenfell's had on the industry has been insane. I know a lot of people are very angry and they're living in flats that have got cladding that isn't right. It was right when they installed it. They weren't to know. People have lost their lives. Let's get ourselves back into perspective. Yes, you might be upset about you're going to have to pay some money, but ultimately, do you not think your home is worth that extra money? Grenfell opened up a lot, and I get a little bit frustrated with people that get really angry with the fact that they've got to pay to upgrade their property because it's no longer compliant. People died for you to understand that. There's a situation here that you've got the opportunity to not die in your apartment. Like, it was awful, absolutely awful. And what's most awful about it is it could have been prevented. That could have been you. If you've got that same cladding that Grenfell had, we know that it failed and we know lots of people died on that and it was absolutely horrific. You've now got that crystal ball that actually if a fire breaks out in your building, there is a massive issue. Don't you think that people that have lost their loved ones wish they had that crystal ball and it was the other way around? It was your building that went up, not Grenfell. This is some of the things that I say to people. So yes, you can protect now, but it's also having a look at the future and having a strategy in place to deal with the unknowns. But yes, these are risks. And a lot of people work with method statements. They came in, I don't know how long ago now, 15 or 20 years ago. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I don't know why they came in, but probably there was a change in legislation and for health and safety perspectives. But I don't really remember because I was a lot younger and I only just entered the industry when they started coming in. So risk assessments and method statements are run of the mill in construction and everyone's aware of them. And how they work is what is the likelihood of the risk from a scale of 1 to 10, and what is the impact of that risk from a scale of 1 to 10. And businesses need to look at their own business and do a risk method statement to some extent of how they're going to manage their business. And this is where a lot of business owners struggle in the industry. And as I've said in other episodes about business owners and leaders in construction, is generally they are a trade. They've created something amazing and built a massive business and they're brilliant, but they're not so brilliant at the specifics of business because why would they be? They've not been trained. So employing the right people obviously is important. I've said that many, many times, but also keeping those people accountable, but not just, oh, I've employed someone, so I'm going to put my feet up. You have to keep at it. Success is through hard work, not excuses. Results and success is dependent on that work and achieving and keep going and keeping your eye on the ball and keep going and keep going and keep going. Yeah, some people they've worked 40 years, they've built people up and they've trained people to be them and they can step back and retire, and that's amazing, but not everyone has. And it's always a leader's fault. So keep an eye on it, looking at your figures on a monthly basis, not just expecting someone to tell you when it's wrong. You have a responsibility to make yourself accountable for your business. Make sure you understand what profit and loss is. Make sure you understand what a balance sheet is. Make sure you understand what your margins are. Make sure you understand how your profit and loss works. Make sure you understand what your overheads are and what your value and what business you need to have in and what turnover you need to have in for those profits. What are your contingencies? What are your plans? What's your strategy? What if you lose one of your clients? How are you going to deal with that? What if there's an issue on site? How are you going to deal with that? So having contingencies in for the unknown, and actually rather than just doing the bare minimum, going above and beyond, because don't get me wrong, it's never perfect. I have a number of clients that I work with and I don't work with them every day, but sometimes it's once in a blue moon, they'll have a problem and they'll want me to deal with it. But what they always do is they always learn. So they'll understand what they're doing. And the next time I speak to them because they've had a problem, well, we did this and I implemented that, but now we've got this problem. So they learn by the mistakes. And the first thing they do is as soon as they know it's a problem, is either ring me or get their team to ring. And the amount of times I've had a call or an email, I've been told to contact you, I've got this problem, right, where we're at. But I have a relationship with these clients that they know we've got set fees, and if those fees go up, they're aware of the fees, and I know that they're going to get paid, but they know I'm going to deliver. And I have a number of them, but they're very successful businesses, very successful. But every now and again, something happens. Someone didn't write the subcontract. Someone didn't sign this. Someone didn't deliver. Someone's been giving too much responsibility and they don't know how to do it. Someone's been given a role and no one's taught them how to do something. They've got a subcontractor that was, I don't know, a friend of a friend, and they haven't been so strict with them and they've then let them down. Things happen all the time. To have the arrogance that you're never going to do anything and take your eye off the ball is setting yourself up for failure. Keeping your eye on the ball, keeping there, keeping active. And if the business is paying you money, then you should be involved in it in some point and making sure that your team is supported. Commercial protection is a lifelong thing. And as I said, there are so many options now and there's no room for excuses. There is so much information out there. People are doing webinars. You've got people doing events, educating, YouTube, for goodness sake. I mean, it's just insane. Documentaries. There are professionals out there. There are so many fractional professionals out there, whether that be fractional finance directors, commercial directors, operation directors, whether it be virtual assistants. There is no excuse now to not have the right board. And yet you can end up with a C-suite worth of executives that are used to running multi-million or even billion-pound contracts. They're actually stepping back a little bit and giving back. And there'll be a non-executive director to give you that advice. But you need to invest in it. You need to invest in the things that are right for you in the company, not scream. If you want your business to be good, you need to put the money into it. I'm a firm believer of buying good ingredients. My nan was Italian. I had a conversation with my dad this morning about healthy eating and how we've been brought up and how we eat healthily. Our diets are Mediterranean, and okay, maybe we're not all so skinny and maybe we like a bit too much butter. We're not perfect, but generally we've got pretty clean diets. And I try to buy organic when I can, and I'm selective with my ingredients, and I try to buy the best that I can because I know that we're a product of what we eat, and I understand about nutrition, and I've learned about nutrition because I became very, very unhealthy and I was really, really sick. So I then had the motivation to learn how to eat properly and feed my family properly and feed my kids much better than I eat myself half the time. But that's a whole different conversation. That's my responsibility. And I know that if I want a good meal, I need to buy good ingredients. And it's the same with business. If you want a good business, you need to invest in your people. You have to invest in your people. You need to recognize good people. You need to give them what they need. It's not just about money. Money's obviously important. You need to make sure that they've got a comfortable environment. They've got a comfortable chair. They're safe. They feel valued. There's a whole big picture to protecting your business because high turnover costs money. That's another way of commercial protection. It's making sure that actually you're investing in these people. You're putting time, money, and assets into these people. You want these people to stay and deliver and get a return in your investment. And that isn't, we're just going to give them a contract that protects them and protects us and we're going to pay them a set wage. That will last so long. Some will want career progression. So you need to make sure that you're managing your assets, which are your people. Commercial protection is about the entire business. So looking at your people, looking at your products, looking at your vans. An accountant will look at every van that you purchase, which most construction companies have got vans. You'll have an allowance for maintenance. And then after so many years, you'll then have to sell or get rid of that van. And accountants will look at that. That's your investment. An accountant won't look at that in regards to a person. I get people to look at the individuals in their business. Right, this is what we're going to do with this person. This is the plan with this person. How are you going to check in and make sure they know what they need and you're getting the most out of that asset? Because some people, for example, I was telling you about my client earlier, no one in that business wants to take that management role for whatever reason. So what they need to actually recruit is somebody that does want to take that, because you need some people that want to grow within a business. But yeah, it's fine that you've got stable people that will stay to do the same job day in, day out. And I have met people in many businesses that have done the same job for 20 years. And that's great. Those people are assets and you need to look after them because they are worth their weight in gold. They are loyal beyond loyal and there is much more to them. Listen to them, treat them well. They are diamonds. They're real assets. But then you also need people that are going to grow, that want that management position, that want to take over, that want that career progression. You need those people in your business too. And each one of those people need to be dealt with in a different way. They need to have a different management structure. They need to have different needs. They need to have different things. And having a plan for those people and a strategy of those people is part of your commercial protection. Because if you lose one of those people, that costs you money. Recruitment costs money. Training costs money. Turnover costs money. When you're looking at protecting your business, you need to look at the people and the assets within them. I've had people where they're not very good at documenting issues on site. First, you need to explain to them the issue with it and how it affects them. If they don't document things on site, when they're held up on site, changes, or that worker's gone to do something and the electrician's put their tray in the way, these things happen all the time. They don't document that, take a picture of it and send it to you. When you get to the point that you're coming to the end of the project and you're 6 weeks delayed, when you don't have that information and you need to explain why you're 6 weeks delayed, but actually the delay happened 7 months ago, one, that person is going to have to try and substantiate it themselves. That's going to be stressful for them. So you need to make them understand how stressful it is. Also, the fact is that could potentially make or break the company, because if the LADs are high and you can't substantiate that claim, even though it's not your fault, it's another contractor's fault. You can't substantiate that. It's going to cost the company money, which means there are no bonuses, there are no benefits, there are no new cars, and there is potentially no business and there is no job. You get people to understand the urgency and the benefit of that, it hits different. Other ways of doing it is an incentive. Whoever has done their documentation the best gets 50 quid to spend in the pub, gets a voucher, gets whatever it is that floats their boat. Find out what incentivizes your team. That's your commercial protection. You get them on board, get them in a way that motivates them. If it costs you a bit of money, let it cost you a bit of money, because guaranteed, I'm expensive. You've got a situation where they're trying to kick your site because of delays, or they're trying to negotiate your foreign account, hit you with LADs after an 18-month contract and you're on month 17 or you're month 19 and the delay is kicked off 18 months ago. That's going to cost me a hell of a lot of time. A couple of 50 quids here and there is going to be a downside cheaper than me trawling through information, interviewing people and trying to figure out what the hell has gone on over a 12-month period, because that's thousands. So these are the kind of things, looking where is your money best spent. Not everyone is motivated by money. Not everyone is motivated by a nice office. Not everyone is motivated by a nice coffee machine. Have a way of protecting your team and have systems and processes to manage your people, manage your projects. One of the companies I work for, they used to do a lessons learned. There's a modular company every 12 weeks or so, or every time they installed something, because they were developing their design and it was modern methods of construction and it was fantastic. And after every module install, we did a lessons learned. We'd all sit around the table. What happened? What went right? What went wrong? How can we improve? I think that's incredible for businesses to do that, because not only are you improving as a business, you're also motivating your team and making your team feel part of something bigger than themselves. And these are ways of learning by your mistakes, but also not waiting until the end of the project. You've agreed the final account and then you realize actually you haven't made 100 grand profit, you've made 20 grand profit, or whatever it may be, you've lost money. Finding out at the end, or when you're filing your accounts, you realize actually you didn't make as much money as you thought you did. And finding out 9 months after the end of your year is not helpful. Setting up these kind of things and putting the time and energy to find these things to keep you going and keep you protected and make sure you know what's happening before it becomes a disaster. Like the last couple of episodes, we've been talking about crisis aversion and project realities and being realistic and being real with what's going on in your business. These are things that you need to do. And by spending a little bit of extra time and a bit of extra money on shorter periods, monthly meetings, catch-up meetings, however you want to do it, whatever works for your business and your team, are going to save you time, money, and keep you protected. And if you don't know how to do that, employ someone to do it for you, teach you, train you, get people in to do training, get leadership training. If you're the problem and actually you think, I don't really know how to lead this team, get leadership training. No one's trained you to be where you are. Most business owners, as I've said hundreds of times, have got them by just working hard and getting results. But they're never trained that it's something born in them, it's something instilled in them. They don't always have to train on how to be a leader. And whether that's listening to podcasts, whether that's listening to audio bits, whether that's having a trainer you pay for that sits one-to-one on a group session, and then have conversations with your team and say, I've done this training, I've learned this, would you be interested in it? Supporting them in their growth. So commercial protection is about having contracts in place, having systems and processes in place, making sure you've got the right account systems, management accounting, keeping an eye on your books, but it's much, much more than that. Protecting a business is protecting all aspects of it, all encompassing the entire business. Now, what part takes priority is entirely up to you. And obviously going from having no protection whatsoever to a perfectly protected business takes time, a lot of time. But being aware of what the risks are, being aware of where you want your company to go, being aware of what that means and how things change and how things change as you go up the ladder and how your business grows in terms of turnover, etc. What does that mean? Understanding the difference between turnover and profit is obviously important. But every aspect, I think, of commercial protection we've covered to some extent, some more than others, and we haven't covered it all. But for me, this is about maximum impact. So I'm trying to educate as many people in the key things that are going to have maximum impact on them as much as I can. If some of this resonates and hits home, or any of my podcasts have resonated and hit home, then obviously reach out to me. There's a number of services that I offer. And regards to commercial protection, this is varied as you need to be, and everything's always bespoke. We've discussed in a recent podcast, if you haven't heard it, definitely check it out, about being realistic and having a reality check on your project. That is a service that I do. So I'll have a look at a specific project and I can have a look and see where that's at. And that's always a really good place to start because it's a low ticket item, but you get a big impact, and it gets me to have an idea about how your project's run and a bit about your business. I also do consultancy. So you can have a conversation with me for an hour and 90 minutes on a particular issue you want to talk about. You can send me some information and we can have a meeting about it. Again, that's a fairly low ticket item. You want me to come in and do an actual analysis of your business, I can also do that. I do transformation packages, which are 6 weeks. They're intensive, but they will transform every aspect of your business. I've got products where I work with you for 12 months and we cover absolutely everything. It's called an accelerator program. And we look at your branding, we look at your marketing, we look at your internal training, we look at your staff, we look at the way that your strategies are, your marketing strategy. We look at the way that your company is structured and we get it prepared for growth. I can do packages like that, total transformation packages. I offer construction crisis projects. So if your project is in crisis, whether you're contractor, developer, funder, end user client, again, they're all bespoke. The best thing to do if you want to work with me is have a conversation, have a look at my website, have a look at my LinkedIn, have a look at some of the things that I do. I always recommend having a conversation with me because there's always something that I can do or some way that I can help. And I will always find the most cost-effective way for you. It's not about extracting as much money as I can out of a client. It's about providing a service. So if you're not sure what you need, you're not sure if I can help you, you're not sure if you want to work with me, it's all cool. I never want to work with the client that doesn't want to work with me. Why would I? It's uncomfortable and painful and it's just never going to go anywhere. Happy to help people as it is. Listen to my podcast. If there's anything you'd like me to cover, or if there's a topic that you want me to cover in the future, that's great. If there's a topic that you'd like to expand, that you want any more information, by all means reach out. I help out people all the time. You want me to come and do a talk in your team and get them to understand about the podcast, share it with them. But if you want me to do an individual workshop, I can do that. There's lots of ways that you can work with me and my team. There are all sorts of programs available. Also doing a lot of work, mentoring through Construction Alchemy, which is actually becoming really, really successful. If you want to work with me to help you with commercial protection or just give you guidance, there's a few companies that I work with that I just meet up with on a regular basis. I just guide them to do it and give them hints and tips and lead them in the right direction. It could be anything from a retainer where we're working all the time, or it can be on occasion you just want the ad hoc bit of advice and someone on the other end of the phone to brainstorm with you. So there are a number of ways that you can work with me depending on the size of your business and where you're at with your business, the age of your business and your experience. If any of this resonates with you, and even if you just want someone to have a look at your business, have a conversation with you and go, yeah, give you a pat on the back and tell you how well you're doing, I can do that too. It's about confidence. It's about changing the industry. It's about support and it's about empowerment. And if there's only those things that you need, then by all means reach out, follow me, connect with me. I'm not scary. More than happy to have a conversation with anyone that is looking to improve themselves and improve their business.
Thank you for breaking that down, Michelle. The key takeaway here is that commercial protection is about being prepared. When businesses understand their position and put the right safeguards in place, they're far better equipped to deliver successful projects and protect the future of their business. Thank you again, Michelle.
You're welcome.
If you found value in today's episode, hit subscribe so you never miss a new release, and share it with someone in the industry who needs to hear it. To learn more, access resources, or find out how Michelle Carr and Construction Alchemy can help you protect your projects, solve problems, and boost your profits, visit constructionalchemy.co.uk. Together, we can change the industry, one project, one company, and one episode at a time. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are based on the personal experiences of Michelle Carr and her guests. They are for general information only and should not be relied upon as professional or legal advice. Always seek your own independent advice before making decisions. Neither Michelle Carr nor Construction Alchemy accepts liability for any loss, damage, or consequences arising from actions taken based on this podcast. Thank you for listening.